Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller here as host today. As we complete, I guess, our 18th year, or we're someplace around our 18th year. My wife and I always argue whether it's the 18th or 19th. She always wins. And we're lucky to have a return guest with us today, Dave Osberg, who is the City Administrator of the City of Eagan.
Thanks, Alan. Good to be here again today.
People will say, the city administrator, what does he do? Well, he's the CEO of the city. We have our mayor and our elected officials who do a great job, but the CEO really runs the show. But why don't you tell us, people, just what that entails?
It's not uncommon, Alan, when people ask me, kind of what my job of a city administrator, in some regards, in many cities, it's a city manager. The CEO description is one that I think is pretty accurate. Another one that sometimes people understand, maybe relate to a little bit, is like a school superintendent. I think people understand and what school superintendents do. So it's not unlike what a school superintendent would be. The mayor and council are the ones who set the policy. As a city administrator or CEO, I'm responsible for then implementing what policies and ordinance they have. And obviously with a great staff we have here in Eagan, we try and distribute the workload and
hiring and firing of employees
and budgeting. Of course, we just got our 2018-19 budget done. We'll say a week and a half or so ago. That's the responsibility that rests with the city administrator, working with the department heads, interacting with the public, of course. So CEO is a pretty good description of it. Again, whether you're a city manager or administrator. City manager, there are many of those in the state of Minnesota too. Those are frequently one of the delineating factors of a city manager or administrator. City managers, by and large, have the ability to hire and fire all employees. The way things work here in the city of Eagan, the city administrator will make recommendations, but at the end of the day, city council is the final authority on all hiring and firing.
And it's worked very well. Now, we have had, since Eagan became a city, and as I mentioned to you earlier, November was 20 years that we have lived in Eagan, Sharon and I, and it's one of the best decisions that we ever made, for reasons that if I started recounting now, we would waste all of your interview. But 20 years here, we've had two city managers, Tom Hedges and yourself, both outstanding people.
Thank you.
Both the recipients of numerous awards, both heading the City Managers
League
Association.
of Minnesota City Managers Association, yeah.
And League of Minnesota
Cities is another organization we belong to.
And both recognized for their outstanding, not only diligence to the job, but ability to handle it and make this city recognized nationally one of the healthiest cities, certainly in the country, one of the most admired cities in the country, a city with a terrific fiscal policy, and we're going to talk about those things.
It's been a good fortune, Alan, for me the last almost 5 years to be the administrator here in Eagan, and all those things that you talk about are very accurate. And you know, obviously Tom he's an icon in our profession, and certainly one here in the city of Eagan. And much of that foundation started, of course, with him and great councils prior to that. And we were talking a little bit off the air. Our councils, by and large, stay out of the, you know, they stay nonpartisan as it relates to their interactions, if you will, every Tuesday night. Certainly what they do offline is
uniquely so.
Absolutely. And
when you read the papers and you see what's going on in some of these other cities, not only with the administrators and the city managers fighting with the council fighting among itself, the council fighting with employees, we fortunately, and knock wood, we have had none of that in Eagan, and we've had just superior work.
Well, and the thing that this council does, and I know others in the past, they kind of stay out of the micromanaging of the city. They had the good fortune working with Tom, and I've been here about 5 years or so, and the experience has always been, they don't you know, try and micromanage. They have high expectations of myself and our staff, from department heads and everyone throughout the organizational chart. And you know, by and large, I think they're pleased with what we do, and as a result, they put a lot of faith and confidence in us. And every Tuesday, not literally, they gather for their council meetings and they take care of the action, and then, you know, we might not see them again for another week or so. They'll call and ask questions or whatnot, but a lot of good faith in our staff, and it's mutual too. They have high expectations, and we try to be certain that we deliver what they expect.
And we've had such great people who have headed the various departments, or where some have left and retired, we have replaced them with great people. Fire Chief Scott, outstanding. Jim McDonald, Police Department, outstanding, recognized far beyond the perimeter of the city. And these things are not accidental. They're from careful scrutiny of employees and personnel and real dedication to do the job.
Well, and one of the things, Alan, you're absolutely right, that when we hire people, we want to be certain that they're aware of the high expectation that the city as a whole, most importantly, places on our employees and the council, and then their peer department heads, their peer supervisors. So we go through a pretty good process. The two most recent department heads, of course, are Andrew Pimentel, our Park and Rec Director, and Jill Hoopmacher, our Community Development Director, who replaced Julie, who went to Iowa City, and John Hohenstein, of course, was our Community Development Director, and they fit right in. So
In Andrew's case, he has an open door policy, so he implemented it by removing the door.
Yeah, he literally has no door
from his office.
Yeah,
and
I don't think he's put it back on. We're going to go through some remodeling here at City Hall soon, so where that door is right now. But yeah, they've both been great additions the last
spring,
year and a half.
I delivered, I think, 13 baseballs and 4 softballs to him because I walk the dog.
With your dog,
in
right?
Lexington Diffley Park. Always pick up.
Yep.
Never missed once. And she, I should say, really noses out baseballs that have been left. So we collect them all and we brought them in a bag.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're probably in use somewhere in our system.
I think they are probably.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that we have here.
Well,
the parks, unbelievable.
Yeah, great park system, the programs that we have, and I think the level of service we provide, again, there's high expectations, and more times than not, I'd suggest we deliver. You know, another thing that makes Eagan great in the context of all that's going on here is location. I mean, we're we're 10 minutes away from just about anything, you know, whether it be, you and I being Twins baseball fans, you can get your car and maybe be at the front door in 20 minutes if traffic isn't too bad. The airport.
Or jump right on the light rail.
Yeah, my wife and I
less
have done
than 20
that.
minutes.
Yep.
So we've done that many times at Fort Snelling.
You know, you can go north, east, west, or south and be at a place in pretty good time. So
Excellent highway system, very accessible.
yeah. So
And yeah, all these things make a great city. And there have been just a few changes in the city since you have come on board. Let's start at Cedar Grove.
well, more immediately, we've had over $400 million worth of valuation in our city here in 2017, one of the best years in a long time. But certainly Cedar Grove with the outlet mall that opened in August of 2014. There aren't many vacant properties anymore. We're in contract with another hotel and also an apartment complex that will hopefully close those in early 2018 or so. Of course, the Central Park Commons, where the Yankee Doodle and Pilot Knob, I stopped by
And
there.
the stores that are in there, I mean, just colossal.
Yeah, I was joking with someone earlier today. About a month or so ago, my wife and I had to go get groceries. It was towards the end of the day on a Saturday, and our date was to go to Hy-Vee because I didn't think it'd be that crowded, and we got our groceries for the week. The place was packed. And so the whole Cedar Park Commons, or Central
we
Park
were
Commons.
running late yesterday and didn't have time to do anything for dinner, so our dinner came home from Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
Now I have to mention that there is a fly flying around us
Okay,
here.
well,
Now I knew that we had an ordinance against mosquitoes, and we don't have mosquitoes here.
well, hopefully not now with the
but-
deep freeze.
but this-
We do have a lot of ordinances in our city, though, that allow animals. So
yeah,
whether it
but this
be
fly obviously doesn't
kind of a
know it's
pesky one.
December in Minnesota.
perhaps the last one of the season.
So we have Cedar Grove,
Central Park Commons.
Central Park Commons, an outfit called the Minnesota Vikings that seems to be joining us.
March 1st is the expectation where they will move into their corporate headquarters in Northeast Eagan, the former Delta Northwest campus. Had an opportunity to be out there a couple weeks or so ago with, and did a slight walkthrough, and there's a bustle of activity. The Twin City Orthopedic buildings will open shortly thereafter. We're still talking with the Viking Lakes development team on the possibility of a conference center hotel in that northeast part of the campus.
Multiple football fields.
Yep, I think they're the big one, of course, Alan, if you will, that they are promoting as opening up to the community is the stadium. It's a 6,000 seat stadium that they want to have, as they've called it, the Friday Night Lights, where every Friday there might be a featured high school football game from, maybe Eagan and Henry Sibley, or maybe one week it's, two schools from up north that might come down
We'll
for the
bring
weekend.
up some coaches from Texas,
Yeah,
and Friday Night Lights
and
will
then
be
have
really Friday Night
I think
Lights.
the idea too is to maybe have maybe an MIAC game or a college football game on Saturday, and then also some sort of youth athletic or youth sports on some of the fields or so. So when we first met with them in 2015, one of their visions, and it's on the verge of being implemented, is to make it more accessible to the community. They want to be out in the community more so than their Eden Prairie campus would allow, and become a part of the fiber in Eagan and frankly in the whole area.
And a lot of green space also.
Yep, the whole trail system, the two lakes, kind of ponding basins on the east side. They expect to have people to have access there. They've talked about maybe a walking path that it would include certain, if you will, visuals of those from the Vikings who are in the Hall of Fame, so you can stop and admire this plaque or this piece of history about the Vikings. So.
And our own water park,
Well, yeah, yep. So
Cascade Bay.
Cascade Bay is doing well, and the Civic Arena. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's not a lot of dull moments at City Hall or beyond, and it's been a fun year in
And
particular.
we have contributions made by people like the late Dr. Capone
Yep.
and his art park, which is now part of the city.
We had a nice event, May, I believe it was. I don't know if you've seen it. the dedication of the Tom Hedges Town Hall Plaza there. John Nassif provided a nice
we did see that, yes.
donation for a plaza, and then there's a nice sign, if you will, symbolizing the great work Tom did while he was here. So it's kind of a nice feature.
John Nassif, who was responsible for bringing Thomson, well,
Building
what
with
was
City.
West Publishing
Right.
is now Thomson Reuters West Division,
Right.
to the city.
Right.
I mean, it's just been up and up and up and up. And we're also designated the healthiest city in Minnesota.
Yeah, we've got a nice recognition, if you will, as being very financially, the financially not healthiest city. Probably 8 or 9 different metrics that were measured, and Eagan was on the top. And again, that's, I think, part of the long-standing tradition of good fiscal policies that the city council would adopt and the staff at the time, and we've tried to continue to do that.
Now, with all these innovations and all these additions, we are pretty well saturated in terms of population and very well segregated between the area where there are a lot of commercial establishments that don't impinge on the population, which is another big feature of the city. So you could look to that. And I don't think there's a lot of area for growth in the future.
No, that's that. If you think about some of the areas that are being developed in the last several years or so, some of them are the last standing, if you will, vacant pieces of property that, in some fashion or another, were maybe hard to develop back in days prior. There's this area west of High V, the quarry near Quarry Road off Yankee Doodle, that's going to have a major development. The City View Apartments, the former Blue Cross, you know, so it's almost like a resurgence or a redevelopment of certain parcels, and then new parcels or new development is kind of the last bastion of properties that weren't otherwise developed in the boom years.
And all of this obviously requires one thing: more public safety. And we've had a police department with 70 sworn officers for quite a while,
Right.
under Chief McDonald. I think one of the very few agencies where a 4-year college degree or its equivalent is required.
High expectations. Yeah.
And having graduated the Police Citizens Academy, was, you know, really thrilled to see that we have, in terms of really violent crime, very, very little
Right.
here. In terms of theft and things like that, it's gone up since we have the outlet mall, where people come from all over to go there. As a result, in this year's budget, there's going to be a little bit of a tax increase, and which is unusual in
Right.
Eagan if it's more than 1 or 2%.
Right.
And it is, I think, 5.2.
5.2, correct.
Yeah.
Is the 5.2 is the additional tax levy. Now, the impact that will have on one's individual home or business will depend on the valuation of your property. But yes, the council was very
But
supportive.
what are we
about
getting for that? We're getting, what, 5?
5? Let me stay on that, Alan. It's a good question. This is the first time we just completed a year or so ago, or a week or so ago, we're doing a 2-year budget cycle. The council adopted the budget for 2018 on December 5th, but we have a pretty much a framework for what the 2019 budget will look like. So by the time the 2018 and 19 2-year cycle is over, the expectation is we'll hire 5 police officers that Chief McDonald and I talked about along with the budget team, and ultimately the city council did approve it. And as you alluded to, it's not necessarily high or physical crimes or those ones to one's person or whatnot that are increasing. It's theft and forensic
petty
and
theft
credit
and
card
things like
and that stuff is very time consuming, and it draws on our resources. And if there is a call for a shoplifting, there's going to have to be 2 officers that may have to respond to it. So it's kind of a culmination of things. So that's all the positive things we talk about as far as growing in a community. We're a growing community, and we have to add certain resources. And then the chief and I had many good conversations about that, and at the end of the day, the council was very supportive and approved that a week or so ago.
Now we have several new firehouses. We're sort of phasing out the old and bringing in the new, more centrally located, can respond quicker, but also that requires firemen.
Right.
Now, a lot of firemen are phasing out in terms of age and retiring. So we have new needs there, and we're meeting those head on.
We used to have, in the most recent past, 5 fire stations. We are now, under Chief Scott's leadership, we've consolidated those down to 3, strategically located. And then the other thing that we're working on, as you alluded to, is hiring additional full-time firefighters. You know, one of the challenges that Eagan has, as well as many other cities across the state and frankly the upper Midwest and the country, is this notion of volunteer firefighters. That's a great model in some cases and in small towns, but as I think everyone understands, the training that one needs to do to have to become a firefighter has grown exponentially over the years. Not only are they firefighters, but they might be basic life BLS, paramedics, some degree of medical service. Those require training and update. And people, as you can appreciate, and everyone I'm sure can, people's time is valuable. So people are less likely to go through all that training and renewal. So we're hiring full-time professional firefighters to be available 24/7, not on rotating shifts. And that's been one of the models that we've looked at the last couple of years, and the council took that first step in this year. Well, we got some grants a couple of years or so ago, but this 2018-19 budget will include funding for firefighters.
Which is why there has to be a little bit more of a levy,
right?
Because we need these things. And when 98% of people speak to a survey and say that they are really happy that they live in this community, that speaks really bushels of confidence,
right,
in what you're doing in City Hall, which, by the way, is going to have to be doubled in size in the next year.
Yeah, not quite doubled, but our plan in hopefully by March, April or so, have entered into a contract for remodel, renovation, addition to the police station and the City Hall, and we'll certainly get more information out to the public as that schedule becomes fine-tuned. But yeah, it's kind of we need to add on. We're going to have a police garage so that we can have our squad cars. Right now they sit outside, and that's just not feasible anymore, in particular in an environment that we live in for 4 or 5 months of the year and security purposes.
Yeah, we were up at St. Cloud, Sharon and I, a few months ago, and we saw their fully enclosed police garage, and what a difference it makes.
Right. So a garage, we're going to have an additional meeting room, training room downstairs, accessible to the public as well as for our city employees. And I mean, I was told that I think it was 1994 when the most recent remodel and addition was put on. Our good friend Tom Hedges said, well, this will last about 20 years or so. Well, we will have gotten about 20 or 25 years out of it by the time we're done. But it's going to be some logistics to move people out and get them into different spots and then move them back when construction's all complete.
Now, a big event took place in Eagan in 1983 involving a lady by the name of Lori and a man by the name of Dave. What was that event?
I proposed to her. My wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but Lori was a school teacher in St. Joe's, Rosemount, and she was living in a townhouse with 2 other young ladies, Timber Shore Lane, right off Denmark, and Westcott, and I proposed to her in, frankly, I know it was 83, but I forget what month. She'd probably be able to tell. I was a nervous wreck. She said yes. We got married in April of 1984, and what'll that be? 34 years come up in late April. We were married in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota.
As the circle goes around, here you are back in Eagan.
Yes.
So
yes, I drive by there every now and then when
that was sort of foreshadowing your future.
Yeah, little did we know at the time that we'd be living here now as of October of 2013 when we moved from Hastings. So
Another thing, when on the occasions when we've been vacationing and we return, we fly over, we say, oh, there's the Eagan Tower, the green lights of the Eagan Tower.
the
now.
Sperry Tower, it's kind of become known as. Yeah, go ahead.
And well, tell us about that, because we had an old water tower, and
Yeah, an old water tower, I think it was just not quite to the date, we'll say, but last December is when we had the grand lighting. I was going to say grand opening, but more of a grand lighting. And the council at the time, with some help from our staff, said, well, let's just kind of have maybe a half a dozen or so, 10 different colors on specific dates, you know, whether it be 4th of July or Valentine's Day or Halloween, but otherwise it's going to stay green. Well, the opportunity on that towers are endless as far as the colors that you can put on there. So we're hoping that in 2018 we'll have more colors, more features that we can take advantage of it. And it's all under the guise of, or if you will, it's
you have to have purple for Vikings
purple
games,
for
right?
Vikings, and it's a cell tower. That's where all those antennas that one used to see on the tower are now incorporated in that tower.
And those antennas actually bring some income into the
Yes,
city.
they do. Yes, they do. I don't have the exact dollar amount, but that's not uncommon for many cities to have some revenue for certain uses from antenna lease towers.
We have cable service. We've had with Comcast for a long time, since I've been on what used to be the Cable Commission,
Okay,
which
sure.
is no longer in existence. But and we have CenturyLink
Right.
that has now come into the city.
Yep.
Cut my Comcast line as they were doing an installation next door.
Yeah, there's always something sometimes with underground digging and whatnot, and hopefully it doesn't happen too often.
But you know, we're talking positive things in a city, and it's a great 5 years that you have lent.
Yeah, it'll be.
Your
I started in March of
expertise.
2013, so just
Right,
short of 5
to,
years, and it's you know, it's cliche in many circumstances. You say the same thing, but it's gone so fast, and all the opportunities that have been in Eagan the last 5 years or so, it's been a bustle of activity, and I think most things have been very, very positive, and people are excited.
So, any thoughts in your last? We have a minute left to the show to talk to the residents, or anything that they have to look forward to in the future.
Well, we will keep you posted on the City Hall and Police Station remodel. Talking budget, Alan, I think I could speak safely for the mayor and the council. We want to thank you for all the support you do give for the budget we proposed and the council adopted. That's the mayor and I and some of our staff went on a couple of talked to some of the local Rotary clubs, and we did a live TV show, and there weren't a lot of questions.
Still one of the lowest
Yeah.
city budgets anywhere, not just in this state.
Right.
In
And I
proportion to
think,
the
and you alluded to it, Alan. I think people understand that with growth and whatnot, it comes with change, and you got to pay for these services. So I think that everyone at City Hall appreciates the support we get from folks like you and the other 65,000 residents from our community.
Dave Osberg, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a fun time. Thank you.